I'm going to be chatting to Adam Duncan. Hi, Adam.
Hi,
welcome. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good.
Excellent stuff. Right, traditional first question. What'd you do?
I obsess about aging.
Oh,
It's a full-time professional obsession. I'm
right.
not making a lot of money at it, but yeah, running workshops and courses and around the aging process and how we can come to terms with it and how we can enjoy aging. We look at the concerns that we have around aging, as well as the benefits that we get from aging, and that is where my life is at the moment. And it probably will be for the rest of my life. I can't really see another phase.
No.
No.
Okay, that's cool. Now, the interesting thing is, normally, in these sort of conversations, I can go right back to the beginning and pick up a little nugget, that's early on. But this one's a bit of a tricky one, really, because it's like, when I was 4, I was thinking about aging. So I'm assuming that obviously your life is obviously goes through phase, because obviously it goes through phases anyway, from a career path or what you're interested in. I'm assuming there's been different facets of your life. So
yeah, definitely.
Tell me, because in my experience, you get very interesting people who are involved in the type of work that you're talking about, and they've come from somewhere also interesting. So tell me a little bit about how your life has sort of panned out.
Yeah, well, I was a complete failure at school. I got expelled and really not academic at all. But I studied drama at Goldsmiths and started writing plays. And I was lucky. I got an agent, very good agent, Peggy Ramsey. And I got some work at the BBC. Then got into the kind of corporate market, kind of like in the 80s. Yeah, sold my soul to the devil and, learned to direct and to produce that kind of thing, set up my own company. And then for about 20 years or so, I was really doing mostly corporate work or training programs. And I became more and more interested in the training programs. The last job, the proper job I did before I kind of quit the whole scene was Amnesty, doing training for them, which I found very, very frustrating. But designing training programs but the other side of all of that is I've always been interested in the counterpoint to corporate life. And I've been lucky enough to. I used to go up to Spirit Horse quite a lot in Wales. A guy called Sivan O'Brien, and spent time up there. And then I got fed up driving up and down to Wales. So I joined Band of Brothers, which is a charity, and started in Brighton. It's doing quite well, and it's taking young men in the criminal justice system and giving them a rites of passage in the woods to move from being a teenager or an adolescent into adulthood. And it was great work. And I did that for 8 or 9 years. I did the leadership training, and that became almost my family. I loved the people. I loved the work. I thought it was a terrific program. And, you know, a lot of frustrations, but generally I think it was pretty successful. I think people, you know, you get 15 adolescents, say 15 mentors, because it's really a mentoring organization, and go away on a Thursday and finish on the Sunday. And a lot of these young men experience something they'd never could have dreamt of. And, you know, some of them, it had a big impact. Sometimes it didn't after, you know, they soon lost that sense of that they got from the weekend. But yeah, I was very involved in that. And then I got to around 70 or 69. Now these weekends, they would go on until sometimes 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, and you're camping in a wood.
Yes.
Right? And it was pretty demanding sometimes.
Yes,
Things
I could
would kick
imagine.
off,
Yeah.
And what I noticed was that by the Sunday evening, I was completely wiped out. And I looked around and I'd see my fellow colleagues, you know, other mentors, they were all knackered as well. But I'd always thought of these people as my contemporaries.
Yeah.
But a lot of them were in the 40s, you know. I'd always seen them as the same age as me. And then I kind of realized, actually, I'm 30 odd years older than you. And you're knackered, you know. And so I thought I need to stop doing this. There is an elder role within this model, but still too demanding for me. When I stopped, I felt real grief. I kind of understood what retirement was like from the corporate world. You know, it's like your meaning's gone, your family's gone. What's your purpose in life? You know.
Yes.
I was feeling very bereft for about 6 months, actually, after I left Band of Brothers. I found I started to be a bit resentful because I couldn't play a full role. I felt resentful and I felt kind of inadequate, and I felt, you know, 65, I was managing okay. 70, I was really struggling. So that got me thinking about aging quite seriously. My mother died when around this time, just before I left Band of Brothers, and I wasn't really close to my mother. We didn't get on, but you know, I think a lot of people have had a parent die. It changes something in you, and
Yes.
you know you're next in line.
Yes.
And so, and because I'd done lots of training programs around different things, inclusion, all sorts of stuff, you know. And because I'd done this work with Band of Brothers, I thought, well, is there a program that we could work on around it's another kind of transition point. So there's from adolescent to adult. What about from adult to mature adult? Is there a rites of passage? Maybe it's not in the woods, maybe it's not doing crazy things, but there may be another rites of passage I didn't know. So I explored that, and yeah, that's where this kind of started. And just one more thing that really got me into this arena was I loved the hospice where my mum died. It was just so full of peace and quiet and tranquility and acceptance and so many different qualities that I hadn't seen anywhere in the corporate world. It was beautiful. That was my experience of it. So I did a course with Hermione Eliot, Living Well, Dying Well, in Lewis. Very, very powerful, quite intense, weak course. And I thought, yeah, this is, I was much more interested in the living well than the dying well, although they're not kind of separate, you
Yeah.
know. But I thought there's a phase where in life, where maybe we can start to embrace the end of life. We've still got the capacity, the mental capacity, maybe the physical capacity to really start to look at this process and what the gold is in it. Because, you know, in our culture, death is unspeakable and it's taboo and you don't go there. And look at our culture, it's pretty messed up. And I think we could learn a lot from, well, from really looking at the whole of life. And the whole of life includes death. You know, it's not, you actually cannot have life without death. I saw a scientific model demonstrated beautifully that if there was no death on the planet, within about 36 hours, the whole planet would collapse. I mean, it would cease to function. You know, all the bacteria, if they don't die, everything, you know, doesn't die, it just cease to function. We have to die. It's part of it. But so that's how it all started for me. Yeah.
That's fascinating, Adam. I mean, I was sort of saying, you know, we wouldn't find a thread, but we have already, because, you know, you're obviously a bit of a rebel because of, you know, being kicked out of school. You obviously could see something other than the time. You know, I've noticed, because I've been involved in education for a long time, and I've often found that kids who are the troublemakers are often the ones who've got something really interesting going on. You know, they can see the inadequacies and the way that the system just doesn't suit them at all. And it's not because, you know, it really doesn't. It's like they can see through it. I've had lots of conversations with kids that were very sort of troubled. You know, they were labelled as being problematic, but actually it was the environment that was problematic for them.
Yeah.
And I can see that, you know, with that, with, you know, acting, which is a very interesting, you know, because we've spoken about art before, but, you know, my thing about music, you know, you could easily apply this to acting, that there's some sort of shamanic thing going on there that we don't really understand. We've commoditized the thing. We want to make money out of it, but really the real power of it comes from what it can do for you, you know, what it can do for the society and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So I can definitely see a trajectory there. Now, you said some very, very interesting things about this, you know, about aging, and how obviously we have a big problem with death in the West. We also have a lot of problems with aging, not even death. Everybody's trying to be young, aren't they, all the time? You know, the Botox generation. I mean, how much of that, you know, could you already see before you got involved in this?
Yeah, I think, as you say, the Botox generation. So there's I think, quite a useful model around dependency, independency, and interdependency. And we live in a, you know, when we're dependent, we're encouraged to move into this independence, you know, so that you're you know, strong, independent woman, or, you know, he's his own man, you know, these kind of expressions, you know. And so we go through that phase, but we want to hang on to our independence fiercely, especially as you get to 50, 60, 70.
Mm.
And it's quite understandable, I think. And of course, you know, in terms of mental and physical capacity, we don't want to be dependent on somebody else.
Mm.
But I think there is a real opportunity to explore on a deeper level interdependence. You know, the connection of all things, you know, from a scientific angle, from a philosophical angle, and just from life experience. So it's not that we are always interdependent, but you know, sometimes we'll be independent. But this obsession with staying independent. So we run workshops, and you know, quite often, this is fairly common. People say, you know, I've got a problem. I can't tell my kids about the problem. You know, I don't want to worry my kids or whatever, you
Oh,
know,
yes.
all of this kind of thing, because
Yes.
I've always been, you know,
Yes.
the provider. But you know,
Yeah.
but the reality is, this, you know, is understandable, and I do it the same. You know, I
Yeah.
need
Yeah.
help with it,
Yeah.
and of course, you know, they say that you always teach what you need to learn. So I'm just trying
Yes.
to learn myself.
Yes. That's a fabulous point, because I actually spoke to somebody about this today.
Yeah.
That if you want to learn something, you should teach it.
Yeah.
And that's been my motto for many years, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're right. Now, this is a really interesting point, because we've got this, obviously, this isolationist idea, you know, with science, and everything's broken down into the thing, and you know, you point at the thing and we take it out of context, because everything's in context with an environment. And although, you know, like if you look at nature, something can be fiercely independent in that it's fighting its own space. You know, the plant that breaks through and, you know, has to compete with lots of other things, but it doesn't live independently, because as soon as something else is taken away from that environment, that could kill that plant, which you think, you know, you would think it's nothing to do with that plant. But I see that again, you know, with art and artists. You know, you take them out of context and they're not relevant.
Absolutely.
And I think this is that sort of, you know, we find that difficult to sort of go. We also got this idea, it's either this or it's that, because it's not. You need that fierceness of thinking for yourself and being yourself, but understanding that you're part of a community, a part of a place, a part of a way of thinking, maybe. But we don't. That's another thing we don't do very well in this society, I think.
No, I think we need some help with it. And so one of the things about, you know, growing old is, of course, it does sometimes feel as though your life is diminishing.
Yeah.
You know, you know, I can't do things now that I could do 5 years ago, and I guess in 5 years' time, if I'm still alive, there'll be less things that I can do, physically and mentally. I mean, my memory's not great, and it's probably getting worse. But there's a lot of this diminishment is, if you look at it from an isolationist, independent, separate point of view, is horrific. Absolutely horrific. If you look at it from the wider point of view, if you see the big picture from an interdependent point of view, it's almost fun. It's kind of, it's not just you. No. This is, you're part of this beautiful process. And of course, I'm sure you know, one or two older people, perhaps not many, but you know, one or two older people that just have this incredible spirit.
Yes.
And, you know, those are very, very precious people because they kind of understand that within that diminishment, there's an opportunity to expand. And if you don't expand, then the chances are you're going to be lonely and isolated. And there's an
Yes.
epidemic of loneliness and
Yes.
isolation in this country.
Yes, there is, absolutely. Because the thing is, of course, there, you know, older people, very old people, become sort of invisible, don't they, in society?
Yeah.
Just in the same way as death is invisible in society.
Mm.
We don't see death around us at all.
No.
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 And I think this is okay. You mentioned spirit horse. Now I know that you know, I've interviewed Shivam,
Oh, yeah.
and I've interviewed Erica. Of course, it's, you know, people listening to this may not be familiar with what they do there. So maybe, you know, you could say what you did, because you did a course, didn't you, for a year?
I did a year course. I mean, it was, you know, lots of weekends and stuff. And we went to Ireland. We did some really madcap things. There were 13 of us. And it was an incredible experience for me. I learned so much. I remember driving back to Brighton with one or two people, Tessa and at the end of the course, we were kind of surprised to still be alive. It was extraordinary that we survived.
Well, that's an initiation, isn't it not?
Yeah, it really
Because
was.
initiations, yeah, because they should be those sort of things that you might not come back in one piece.
Absolutely. There was a very strong element of that.
Yes.
But I learned a lot from Shiv, and I think he's a really, really wonderful man. I think he's doing great things. It's not quite my way at the moment, but a lot of people that I've been influenced by have really, you know, the man who wrote Iron John,
Yes.
Robert
Bly, yeah.
So there's many, and Shiv was one of those, and a lot of the Band of Brothers people, Robert Bly. I never met Robert Bly, but I know a lot of people that have worked with him, and I've learned a lot from them, and I'm really grateful to them. I think, you know, his legacy is incredible. Great poet, and sort of really started the men's mythopoetic movement. And thank goodness for him. But the stuff we did at Spirit Horse, many different things, and in a way, I mean, they've got a great website now, and so I would say anybody that's looking for an adventure, and to really see something I'm sure they won't have seen before. To go and try it out. It's great stuff. They got some land up in Wales, and he's a very generous man, very, very generous man. But the reason I stopped going up to Spirit Horse was get there, and you know, we'd say, oh, these mountains are sacred, this valley is sacred, this river, these streams, these lakes, and we'd get all sacred about the whole thing. And then I'd drive back after a few days down the M6 or M whatever it was, stop at a service station, which was horrific, you know. Oh God, this is the planet I live on.
Yes. Yes, that's my experience entirely of the same thing.
And I remember one time I just got back to Patcham, where I live in Brighton, on the outskirts of Brighton. I thought, oh God, isn't this sacred? I thought, well, you know, it is if I choose it to be sacred.
Yes.
It's a conscious act of So, and that's when I got involved in this, in the Band of Brothers. And where I'm at is, trying to do the best where I am rather than, going to, some far off land that's
Yes.
some kind of paradise. I mean, it's here. It's right here now.
Yes, and it's always that sort of thing of, like, as you said, that the motorway services. It's almost like you've landed in, what's that place in Star Wars? It's Tatooine or wherever, the weird cafe. You just, you sort of see and you think, and you do feel like, especially when you've come from something like Spirit Horse, that you've landed from another planet. But of course, that is the world we're in, and it is, as you say, it's a manifestation of life, and you might not like it, but it's still a thing, and as you've got, again, I can see a parallel with what you're talking about with that, and the realities of aging. We might not like that, but then you've got to look into that and think, well, hang on a minute. This is a natural thing. It's a natural phenomenon.
Yeah.
And it's not really that's the problem. Well, this is my opinion. It's a community's way of dealing with aging. We don't honour those people. There's not a place for them. They're not. Their experience of life is often not relevant, because, well, it is relevant, but it's assumed not to be relevant because people are always trying to think about being young.
Yeah. So I think the only way that you can change this, so as I said earlier, the government put aside 100 million, I think, to counteract isolation and loneliness, I think about 2018. Right. Don't know what happened to the money, but I suspect a lot of it went into writing white papers.
Yes.
It's kind of social strategy stuff.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I think, it might do bits of good here and there, but I think ultimately people of a certain age, people in the second half of life, the only way it's really going to change is if they take ownership of their age.
Yes.
They're the people to change it. So the model that we have at the moment is, simplistically, age is bad, youth is good. So when young people, middle-aged people, look at their seniors, their parents, their grandparents, what they very often see is pain and suffering and complaint. Not all the time, but, that is a common image around, So what about if they saw, a small community of people that actually were very much alive? Yeah. And I think, and were really fulfilling themselves in ways that maybe the youth don't understand, but they look at them and think, oh, that doesn't look too bad.
Yeah, exactly.
Because at the moment, our culture's full of fear of aging and death. We have very few role models. So I think it's relatively easy for us to take ownership of this and to have some fun doing it. I mean, to be playful, to be mischievous, to really engage with each other in some of the possibilities. We've got far less to lose. Yeah, it's kind of ironic, isn't it? Like when I was 20, I'd go around on a motorbike, no crash helmet. I drove down to Italy and, didn't care about my life at all. I just presumed, be okay. As people get older, their life becomes more and more precious if you've got less of it. There's so many ironies around age.
Totally. Yes. Yes.
And so, this is my dream. It might not happen in my lifetime. If I can sow a seed, And there's a group of us now. We've got a group of, small group, core group of people. We're working together, working on facilitation and devising courses, etc. If we can sow a seed in my lifetime, well, I'll die with a smile on my face.
Yes. See, that's an interesting thing. Was when you have, just call them life events.
Yeah.
Um, Particularly when you have them that are close enough to realizing that you're lucky to be here. I don't know about you, but it sort of occurs to you that that could have happened at any point in time, but you just didn't think that it could do, because you look back and you think, oh yeah, my mate died at, he was only 30 and he dropped dead, and I remember this kid at school who died, he drowned and so on. So you think, well, actually, life was quite, you were vulnerable all the way through. But it's only as you get nearer to the end that you realise, you go, well, actually. So I'm not trying to get that from the point of view of making people feel fearful about death, but it's the fact that life is extraordinary, and precious at any point, at any point in time.
That's one thing I got from the hospice.
Yeah.
From a corporate point of view, after say 50 or 45, you're losing your value as a worker, as a producer, unless you're in the top 2% of management or something like this.
Yeah.
You are losing value as you go through, and you're becoming a burden to society. And this is becoming very prevalent, this kind of viewpoint, with the state of the national health and everything else. I think what really impressed me about the hospice was these people are being cared for with such love. Even they're absolutely, well, almost certainly guaranteed to die.
Yes.
In the next month. And yet the love that is given, and that is absolutely, as you say, Vic, it's about any stage of life is precious. And I think if we, clearly if we could view life, all life, as being precious, I mean, well, that's a big if. That's a big if. But, it seems like we're a very long way from it with when we're dominated. I mean, Shivam talks about efficiency. It's about efficiency. Our whole culture is how do you make quicker, cheaper.
Yes, instead of more beautiful.
Exactly. I remember we were planning to build some new structures at Spirit Horse, or something like that. And I just remember Shivam saying, we're going to do this in the most inefficient way as possible. I love that kind of thinking.
Yeah.
Because it was about connection. It wasn't about the building. It was about us connecting. And, that's wonderful stuff.
Yes. I could draw comparisons with music totally with that.
Good.
It's this idea, if you're going to write a song, just let the song be what it is, even if it turns out to be something that you can't do anything with. It's got nothing to do with, the efficiency of, let's write a pop song, so we want the chorus, now let's have the verse. We need the hook line, we need the, we need the hook here, blah, 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 as it was 3 minutes, 20 seconds type of thing. It's like, no. Just let the thing be itself. And if it doesn't turn out to be something you can use, well, fine. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's about the process, about you.
And trusting the process. I've been on a bit of an interesting journey with this phrase, trusting the process, trust the process.
Right.
Myself, as I'm talking with a friend about this and trusting the process. We sort of both know what it means, but is it just a kind of aphorism that is a bit, I don't know, new agey or something like this? What's behind it? And I felt that I really got some gold out of thinking about it, because trusting the process only has value if I focus on the process. So it's very easy for me to, I've started the process, I've done some of the process, and then I get distracted. I get caught up in other stuff. And then I come back and do a bit. And trusting the process only really works if you are focused on it. With your life, I think,
Yes.
really with your whole being. I mean, obviously you go off and do other things occasionally, but it's so easy. The biggest thing is distractions in our culture that I can see. It's so easy to be distracted from really what your purpose is, what you really want to do. So one of the things we do in the workshops is around purpose, because when you're young, middle-aged even, or coming up to retirement, you might well have pretty clear sense of purpose, whether it's career or relationships or money or whatever. Of course, that can quite easily break down as you get into your 60s and 70s. Really, what's my purpose? And you've maybe not got the same social status that you had. And so what is your purpose when you know you're going to die? And so we do quite a lot of work around purpose. And I think it's really interesting work. So obviously it's more about being rather than achieving a extra, but how do we want to be at this stage of life? And to some degree defining how we want to be.
Yes.
So the first workshops we ran, they were called Aging into Eldering.
Right.
And I constructed these with this wonderful woman, Lease, and we spent a long time doing it. But we never really cracked the elder bit. So there's a lot of people now interested in eldership, elder work. What is an elder? And really exploring this. I personally not very keen on the term elder as a noun.
No.
Because it's another label. And who's an elder? And
It's a slippery one, isn't it?
One. Absolutely.
Because it's almost something that people can recognise in somebody, but that person can't maintain that that's what they are, if you see what I mean. It's almost like I don't really want to use the word virtue. It's something that is seen in somebody.
Yeah.
It's difficult to draw a comparison on that.
We talk about eldering.
Yes. You could do eldering.
But there are organisations that have tried to develop elders, and of course the middle management or the who the hell are these guys? Calling themselves elders. They're old farts. Get off. So, but originally, of course, in indigenous cultures, elders were, as I understand it, in many indigenous cultures, there were elders who, just because you were an older, you weren't necessarily an elder, but these people really were responsible for protecting the values and the stories and the long-term survival of that community.
Yes.
They weren't the warriors, they weren't the chiefs, they were sitting at the back of the tent, and they might say at the end of the day, do you think it's a really good thing if we do that? I mean, it could be that you know, that's not our way of doing things. You know,
Yes. Well, I think that's one of those things when you get enough miles on the clock, and you start looking at things and go, I recognise this, and I've seen this a number of times, and you know, you can see things in a different viewpoint from when you experienced them the first or second time they came round, and you know sort of where they go. You know, not definitely, but you've seen it before, and I think that's the thing that that sort of eldership would have done. You know, because if you go to traditional communities and stuff, those people who were the elders would have been, they could have been the warriors, and of course, how do you get somebody who's a great peacemaker? Well, somebody who understands the experience, or they could have been, you know, they're the grandmothers, they've had the children, they know what it's like to bring up children, but they've also got the long view that you don't need to worry about that. You would worry about that at this age, but you don't need to worry about it because it'll be fine. You know, and I think that's one of those things that when you don't have that in a society, you've really got a problem. You know,
the long view.
The long view.
If you think when you were a child, how long it took from one birthday to the next.
Yes.
It was forever. You
It
know,
was.
Christmas was 2 weeks away. That was a millennium, you know.
Absolutely.
That's because that's your view as a child.
Yes.
As you go into adulthood, you obviously take a wider view. I mean, this is very much connected with the independence and interdependence. That from the independent point of view, your view is still quite defined, and it's generally self-serving. You know.
Yes.
And whereas, you know, interdependence, you can really see that we can talk about, you know, I mean, talk about climate change or anything like that. You know, we can see that these causes that we make now have huge implications for the whole of society. Now, we could do with, and of course, the other thing that's going on is that TikTok and, you know, Instagram and everything, it's shorter and shorter and shorter. That actually 30 seconds, 15 seconds, 150 characters. Keep it as short as possible. And, you know, we've got these things going on. But there's I'm still an optimist. I'm still an optimist, despite all these disturbing things that I don't understand.
Well, I think what happens with a lot of stuff is obviously the attention span thing is an interesting thing. But because, you know, we worry about memory and all the rest of it, you know, that my memory's not what it was. But, you know, I teach lots of kids and I can tell you now their memory is not very good. And that's not just now. That's been like for a long time. I think it's this sort of distraction thing, because that's really what happens when we forget things, isn't it? I mean, generally, you know, walk out of a room, go into another room, and you forgot what you've gone in there for. But you walk back into the original room, and you get them. It comes back again because you're in the environment where that thought first manifested itself in your head. So then, you know, but that's true with children as well. But I think there is an element where people's concentration is being stolen from them with things like social media and stuff like that. And that is not a good thing. You know, it's almost the antithesis of, well, it is the antithesis of meditation, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. There's so many problems in society, and I don't think that the elders or us older people, I hope you don't mind me including you in that.
Oh, no, you can include me.
You look very young, but
Yeah, I'm only 21
yeah, okay. Um,
and a liar. Keep going.
I don't think that we can, I don't feel we can fix or even grapple with any of these
No.
problems. I don't think it's our job to.
No.
I feel that our job, our function, our healthy function, is just to model connection, non-judgment, non-fixing, not advising,
Yeah.
but really being open and generous and connected. I mean, that to me, those are the kind of qualities of the elder, and maybe a little bit mischievous and maybe playful.
Yes.
But, I think the time of things like, as you say, attention spans and TikTok and schooling and education, all of these things, well, you're still very much involved in it. But for me, I'm really not interested in my own judgments and opinions around all of this stuff. I just believe I have a responsibility to be fulfilled and happy, and that's not an easy task.
No. I totally agree. And I think because there's something that, how you get a number of things appear at once and they're all the same message.
Yeah.
And I had a couple of books given to me, and I did a podcast interview with somebody that absolutely nailed the same thing. And it was about, one of them was a book written by a guy who runs a yoga center in America. And it was really about looking at the story of Krishna's conversation with Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, about Dharma. And this other book was written by the woman who wrote Eat, Pray, Love, called Big Magic, Elizabeth Gilbert, and about creativity. And she basically was saying exactly the same thing about, you produce things, don't worry about what you get. Forget about the result. That's not for you. It's just the process of doing the thing.
Oh, God, and gardening is, sorry, Vic.
No, absolutely. So the point is, it's about, also, this is one other point, because when you were talking about the elders sitting at the back, and who might just at the end make a comment, I nearly said to you, it's sort of like the fool who can say the thing that nobody wants you to say. That sort of being a little bit, mischievous. Because I think that's a really, really important point, because I think that sits in the whole area of art and creativity as well. Is there's a mischievousness about things, that things are said that need to be said, but in such a way that it catches people off guard. It's not like accusatory or anything. It's just that thing. Oh, that's really strange about so-and-so. And that's the sort of thing that older people, I can remember older people saying. They would say the thing like, you're spending a lot of time with so-and-so. No, I'm not. All those sort of things, weren't they? I don't know.
Yeah. Now, this fool thing is speaking truth to power and all of this. I mean, I feel we're in a good position to do that because we've got less to lose.
Yes.
If they put me in prison, well, it might only be for 20 years rather than if they put me in prison, it could be for, So this, the fool, there's a guy, I've got a course which is being facilitated in a retirement village in Birmingham at the moment. Course that we did. And the guy who's facilitating it is 81. Right? And I'm kind of mentoring somebody older than me, but in the facilitation of this course. They're videos and it's interactive and everything else. He said to me the other day, he said, my ex-wife lives upstairs from me, in the apartment upstairs from me, and she doesn't want me to facilitate this course in the retirement village because she thinks I'm going to make a fool of myself. And I said, you know, he said, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I really felt like if we had more fools in this world.
Yes.
What a brave, wonderful man. He's an amazing man. You know,
Yes.
81, he fell over in the shower. He's kind of really struggling, but he wants to do this. And he's prepared to make a fool of himself because he believes in it.
Yes. Yes. And I think, you know, that's one of the, again, this is another thing that we've well, I don't know, we've sort of tried to put reins on people who are comedians, you know, oh, you can't say that. But of course they are the equivalent of our, you know, of the fool or the jester type of thing. Of the past, where people can, you know, this idea of, okay, it's difficult to make humour out of politics. Politics does a good job on its own without comedians. But, you know, I do think that, again, as you say, that sort of thing of being able to say something that people sort of go like, oh, yeah, well, you know, oh, Harry's lost his marbles anyway type of thing. But it's like, but he's got a point.
Yeah.
You know,
I think the big thing for me around aging is it takes a lot of courage.
Yes, it does.
So it's pretty easy to let the kind of diminishment embrace you, so that you're just small and keep it as limited as possible. And it takes courage to age, because we know that there will be problems down the line. And we've seen it, you know, in the older generations. And so for me, every day, this is my sort of, almost my meditation is around courage. And, you know, what I think about the world, it doesn't really matter what I think about the world, but it seems like courage is, if anything's going to change, we need courage. And we need to be able to, I need to be able to really be open to the fact that I may have immense amount of courage that I haven't even begun to tap into in my life. And I believe we've all got immense amounts of courage, but basically our culture is built on comfort and safety. And, you know, so a lot
risk assessment.
Risk assessment. And, you know, these retirement villages, well, they're building them everywhere. They're gated communities, and they may well work for a lot of people. But this idea of safety and comfort being the two guidelines feels like not a very healthy prospect for a community, you know.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, because again, just, you know, going back to this idea, just looking what happens in nature. Everything has to overcome something, and this is true with us, right? You have to get stronger, you have to overcome something. That's whether you're going to the gym to do your whatever, right? But it's always like, it's difficult to lift these weights or do this thing, and you do that thing and you become stronger. But that's true mentally. You know, you try to overcome whatever it is that you do. You go through, and it builds resilience, and that continues until we can't do it anymore, until we're dead. We're building resilience. And I see exactly the same thing, what you're saying, but I see it everywhere. Again, children's education, my God, you know, it's all about, they can't be any risk. Well, we really have got to think carefully about this, because we have to have risk. It's got it, otherwise what we're going to end up with. Because, you look at anything else and you go, well, that's not a good thing.
No.
If you've got a plant that can't withstand this, we just can't deal with that. We can see it everywhere else, but not with ourselves.
I remember being at Spirit Horse, which is in the mountains in Snowdonia. And I was new up there, first time I've been up there, I think. And I saw these kids on the side of a mountain. I was absolutely horrified. They seemed quite young to me. And I went and said to this guy, I said, look, these kids up there. He said, yeah, they're mine. And he seemed pretty confident. And, that might sound like a very dangerous thing to say. I never heard of a serious accident there, but certainly exposed to the dangers of life, and I think that's it's a wonderful thing.
Yes,
wonderful thing. But
yes, because even if you took all the dangers away, you can't eradicate every danger.
No,
it's not possible.
No.
So you could have somebody living in a sort of sealed off zone of, and they could do something really silly and injure themselves, maim themselves or whatever. And I mean, the classic one is that we've got children now who are going to die of obesity. There's no two ways about it. And you look at that, is absolutely rampant in our society. We've got people who are living half a life. They can be living a long life, but it's half a life because they just haven't got the capacity to do anything. They're on medication that not just one thing, just multiple problems that they have due to the fact that they've not lived a life that they've just eaten rubbish or whatever. And it's not their fault, because it's just basically what they think is easy or whatever.
Yeah. I think some of those things are also connected to our attitude to grief and to joy as well. We live, somebody said, like a flatline culture.
Yeah.
We don't really experience.
There's no peaks, are there? No peaks and troughs.
No peaks and troughs. And I think all of these things, is as older people, as people in the second half of life, I'm optimistic because I think there's an opportunity to really explore the fullness of life that probably isn't as easy for younger people. The fact that we've done our bits of career, failed or success, whatever. We've done that. Now we can explore something. And one of the things that has really excited me recently is the sense of, so a lot of people in retirement villages, often middle class, quite comfortably off, that they will have done lots of cruises. They'll have done the cruises and they'll be fairly safe, and and that's considered adventure, to go to the Antarctic on an ice ship if you're wealthy and see the penguins. That's adventure, and it may be good, but I think there's an opportunity now to have a kind of inner adventure, which that's my passion, is really how do you we're not therapists, we don't do therapy, but we enable people to work in a space, and basically what we do is ask questions, structured questions, that maybe people have never been asked before. And then we kind of have ways of people kind of opening up and really looking at these questions. We don't say we don't advise participants in any way at all. It's their exploration, and that's what excites me, and is the possibility of exploring, changing the paradigm around aging, which is bleak. And every time I see another government white paper or one of these charities, Aging Better or whatever, that is,
because you don't often get sort of aging disgracefully white paper.
You should come round to my. You should come round.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I think.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you, Adam. Keep going.
No, aging disgracefully. I did some film work sometime. I had a film company called. It was called Dishevelled Films, and we were talking the other day about how we like the word dishevelled.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, so yeah, and
Great stuff.
we've nearly done an hour now, and I could, it's been wonderful talking to you, Vic, because
it's been brilliant, Adam.
We
Fantastic.
met at John's party, didn't we? And,
we did,
and that was a joy. And he's a really interesting man. But having a bit more opportunity, and I hope that maybe sometime we can.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Definitely, mate. Yeah, no, good. You're not far away, are you? So
no.
It's good. We shall do that. Okay. So now, what's your? I'll put this in the show notes anyway. But what's your website?
Shall I send it to you it's www.life-stage.org.
Cool. I'll put a load of Jen in the show notes anyway.
Thank you very much.
And that's good. No, it was an absolute pleasure. It's lovely to chat.
Yeah.
So,
okay. Beautiful.
All right then.
And lovely to chat to you, Vic. Thank you so much.
No, that was a pleasure. It was a pleasure.